What's the stupidest thing a teacher has tried to tell your child? Teacher once argued with me about how to pronounce my own dang name. 4th grade gym health teacher told us that sleeping on your stomach causes stomach cancer. That's funny. My 3rd grade gym teacher told me that biting chewing the inside of my cheeks, a thinking habit I get from my mother, would give me cancer. I was utterly terrified until I went home to my mom and she told me it was a load of crap. And then my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer some time later. Clearly that's what caused it. I got in a large argument in 7th grade because my teacher wrote a test, with the question being, how many weeks are in a year? He said the answer was 48. Still get angry that I got that wrong. Me. I am going to publish this essay on my FTP server, so I can download it later. School librarian. You are going to do what? Me. I am going to put this on the internet. School librarian. You can't just put stuff on the internet. Her concern was valid. If you were still in school, you were likely not old enough to have been able to acquire an internet publishing license. I'm still saving up for mine. My English teacher once told me that separating was not a word. I got told discombobulated wasn't either. I learned it when I was writing pages from the dictionary for being a smartass. In 3rd grade our history teacher started talking about Benjamin Franklin, basically the usual stuff that everyone knows, but then she says how great of a president he was. Well, I'm in 3rd grade and I know that's not right. I raise my hand and I tell her that Benjamin Franklin was never a president. The class disagrees with me and so does the teacher, but I hold my ground and she looks in her book of presidents and sure enough, I'm right. Most satisfying moment of my life. The teacher was actually willing to admit she was wrong. That at least makes her infinitely superior to most of the teachers in these stories. The kids in my son's class had to pick a state to do a report on. One of the kids picked Hawaii. The teacher told him he had to pick another one, because Hawaii isn't a state. A substitute tried to tell us that 9/11 was the first time America was attacked on our own soil. Good lord. Stuff like this should be our go-to answer when people question why we should bother to learn history. When my brother was in grade 4, both of his teachers insisted that Mexico was in South America and laughed at him for saying otherwise. When he brought in articles about NAFTA that my mom printed out for him to prove them wrong, they said anyone can say anything on the internet. I had a teacher in a 2nd grade tell our class that Texas is the largest state. I proceeded to attempt to correct her by pointing out that Alaska quite a bit larger than Texas. Her only response was, Alaska doesn't count because it's made of ice. When I was in elementary school, a PE coach insisted that deoxygenated blood was blue. I tried to tell him otherwise. Blood is dark red when it's drawn from a syringe etc. But he didn't listen. I ended up asking my doctor, who burst out laughing and said something to the lines of, and that is why he is the PE coach, not your doctor. Not my child, but my father was once told by a high school teacher that the Japanese kamikaze pilots all performed seppuku on themselves right before their planes hit ships in Pearl Harbor. This is 10x more epic than the truth. I was born in France. I moved here when I was 8 years and spoke no English, only knew yes, no, and thank you. I went to a bilingual school for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. You learn pretty quickly at that age. My 5th grade teacher was Latin. Don't remember what country she was from, but deaf Spanish as a first language. Heavy accent. We were doing grammar one day and she asked me what part of a speech a certain word was. I said it's a verb. Her response, no, it's a verb. I argued with her that for 2 years I'd been taught that it's verb not verb. She insisted that it was verb and made me say verb the rest of the year. The next year I started middle school at a regular school. Same convo, new teacher, and I say it's a verb. Of course everyone, including the teacher, laughed at me. I was like, I knew it, idiot teacher. My coworker was told by her son's kindergarten teacher that if she fed him fruit while he had a flu, he'd develop an allergy to the fruit. I nearly pee myself laughing. My teacher insisted there were 100 meters in a kilometer. Huge argument ensued. I won with my facts. Well, there are also 900 more. Pedantry aside, that's got to be infuriating. My home ec. Teacher tried to convince us that honey was very bad and to always eat white processed sugar. Also fresh cow's milk and fresh eggs are poisonous until processed. After growing up on a ranch in the middle of nowhere and eating all three no-nos all my life, she called me a liar and said I should have been dead a long time ago. I am dead, and I have come for you to profess all your lies. I don't have children, but I was told in sex ed that condoms do not protect against any STDs. I was always confused as to why gay men wore condoms. I thought it was some sort of fetish. My sister's 3rd grade teacher thought that a baker's dozen was 11, since the baker ate one. As a baker, I can confirm this. Had a teacher tell me that a gallon was 64 ounces. I told her it was twice that. A security guard came to the door to drop off mail or something, and she asked him. He said 128 oz and the teacher ran from the room sobbing, right past the very confused guard. Same woman told me that Japan is a communist nation. Japan is an animation nation. In 2004, back when I was in the 6th grade, we had a geography quiz. One of the questions was who Hong Kong belonged to. United Kingdom and China were both answer choices. I answered China and got it wrong, so I asked my teacher about it. She told me that although Hong Kong was technically now part of China, the textbook, which was printed in 1996, said it was still part of the UK, therefore she wouldn't correct my quiz. Why the frick would you put a question like that in a quiz knowing the situation? My 6th grade teacher asked the class for an example of an interesting animal. I said piranha. She said no, fish aren't animals. That's when I realized she was a complete idiot. My science teacher told me that we'd all die in 50 years when the coal supply ran out. Cue me having a mad panic and bawling my eyes out until my dad told me otherwise. Growing up in the 1890s must have been stressful. My year 9 UK school year, I was 14-year-old. Geography teacher insisted that Havana was in Mexico. I had been to Cuba not 1 year before, yet she insisted she was right. She called me to find Havana on the map and find it I did, chilling there on Cuba's western tip, on the massive map of the world on the wall next to her desk. Okay, sit down now was her response. I lost quite a bit of respect for teachers that day, and it was from that point I truly began questioning what people presented to me as fact. If she was wrong about that, I thought, what other bulls has she been passing off as fact? She accidentally gave you the beginnings of wisdom. My cousin's teacher asked the class of very young children to name colors of apples. She aced green. The teacher said, I mean ripe apples, she said. Yay, green. My mom buys green apples, and the teacher made her look like an idiot in class. She got home and told her mom about it, and my aunt promptly purchased a Granny Smith apple for each student in the class and came with her to school the next day. My sister's teacher in grade 7 insisted that it was the Leaning Tower of Pizza even after several of the kids told her it was Pisa. High school science teacher said Katrina was a twister. I raised my hand and said it was a hurricane. Instead of admitting she made a mistake, she continued to defend her original statement. I continued to explain to the class what the differences were and that in fact Katrina was a hurricane, with a major fact being it was named. We don't go around naming tornadoes, do we? The teacher cried. I was an ass when I was younger, I guess. Okay, this one really peed me off. In my freshman year of high school, we were studying US history for about the 7th time, and we were talking about the desegregation of Little Rock High School, AR. We had to do some kind of group work in which we had to write down facts of some sort about the incident. I talked about how President Eisenhower had to send a bit over 1,000 US Army troops from the 101st Airborne to protect the incoming African American students. The student teacher, basically just the teacher's bee, was walking by and just laughed at my comment. He hated me. I looked at him with a strong sense of confusion, thinking that maybe I got my numbers wrong, and he said, "You really think that the 101st Airborne would go to Little Rock High School to protect it? What do you think they did? Flew all their fighters to the high school to protect it? Had overhead attacks on the protesters? Come on, Snipperska, be rational here." I tried describing to the student teacher that the 101st Airborne isn't the Air Force and that the troops were definitely from that section of the military, but once again he laughed at me. Thankfully we had computers in class, so I looked it up, showed him the information, and still thought I was wrong. He still made fun of me for thinking that. You know what? I'm going to send him an email now that I'm gone from that school. There are sharks in the Dead Sea. Somewhat on topic. Back when I was in 2nd grade, my parents had just gotten me this awesome messenger bag that had a big sailboat on it. I was super excited and showed my teacher. We needed to have our names somewhere on our backpacks and supplies, usually written on the tags inside, but this bag didn't have any tags. So instead my teacher proceeded to write my name with a permanent marker all over the front of my bag. She then wrote a letter to my parents saying my school bag was too small and I needed a larger one. I was extremely sad and my parents pee off. Had a substitute teacher that told the class that AIDS would be airborne in the next 3 years. He got mad at me when I said really? Because no it isn't. I dig that response. Health and career class tried to say that drugs weren't bad. They related it to coffee, then said it was okay to try at parties. When I was in the 7th grade, my teacher failed me on a report that stated Christopher Columbus did not discover the Americas. He landed in the West Indies and the Caribbean islands. He also was not the first European explorer to eventually visit the Americas. At least one previous explorer, Leif Erikson, preceded him. The teacher stated that I was blatantly making things up to hype my sense of self-importance. I don't believe I had ever been so angry in my life. I had a multiple choice test question in 5th grade that asked if tall buildings were measured in A. millimeters, B. centimeters, C. meters, D. kilometers. I picked meters, which he claimed was incorrect and that the correct answer was kilometers. That led to an argument with my math teacher, which in turn led to a parent-teacher conference where my parents apparently had a hard time stifling their laughter. I would have just argued that they were all correct because it's a unit of length and therefore suitable for measuring heights. Son's 3rd grade assignment, draw your dream house. He got an F because his dream house was unrealistic. He failed another student choice of topic assignment he did on dinosaurs, because dinosaurs weren't real as they weren't in the Bible. He got detention when he told her neither were air conditioners. Public school, early 90s in rural Texas. My son was in kindergarten and had an assessment test to determine if he was prepared to continue. I came in afterward for the review. The teachers commented that he did very well, but he missed a question. What's your favorite number? Apparently, he answered infinity and explained clearly why. Yeah, they were looking for a simpler answer like 5. When I told them that in mathematics, it's considered a number, they said it was too high a concept for a child to understand and therefore wrong. How do you get an opinion question wrong? This happened to me rather than my kids. We had a substitute in our kindergarten class who went on a rant about how the Holocaust wasn't real and never happened. My best friend was also in my class, and she lost her grandparents in the Holocaust. We went home and told our mothers, who showed up together the next morning, and by the end of that day, that woman wasn't allowed to substitute in that district anymore. My junior high science teacher along with my entire class were convinced that while skydiving, when you pull the chute, you actually go up. Like the parachute somehow creates lift, almost like a bungee cord. I tried to tell them that it just appears that way because the person filming doesn't pull their chute at the same time and therefore keeps falling at terminal while the parachuter's velocity is significantly reduced. Totally felt like I was on crazy pills. The whole class was yelling at me. We had to take it to a high school physics teacher resolve the argument. When I was 9 years old, my parents divorced, and my new elementary school had a ridiculous in-house therapist. His methods included coloring a blank chalk outline photo in different colors to show where I felt my emotions. Even as a child, I was irritated. Also, he suggested I kick the wall if I'm ever angry, because the wall doesn't feel pain. I did so, and smashed a 13x10 inches hole through the drywall in my bedroom. You should have kicked a hole in his office wall, then walked out saying, "Thanks, I feel so much better now." This is Cato of Power. If you subscribe, your power level will increase by 64 levels. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.